The world is changing at breathtaking speeds, with trends and fads popping up and passing away at breakneck pace. Against that backdrop of nearly constant upheaval, we welcome you to the Sunday Scotch Society. Over delectable, sumptuous scotches and with the occasional good cigar in hand, we have open, honest, and uninhibited conversation about whatever strikes our fancy. Whether it's the critical issue of the day or a deep dive down the rabbit hole, we take it all seriously while having a good time. Join us for a stiff drink and a great conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time. And folks, welcome to the Sunday Scotch Society. This is, let's call it an Easter edition of our little get-together here. And one of the things that I think is great about Easter is it's a time of renewal. So, Matthew, I'd like to renew our friendship and our commitment to excellent Scotch and to living our best life, my friend.
Pop that cork, sir. Oh, that sound.
Now, today's dram is what I was able to enjoy on the last episode, and I held the bottle back because I wanted to share it with you. It is the Naked Malt. The Naked Malt is something that is produced by Edrington. That's the brewery that gives us the Macallan.
Yes.
And what the Naked Malt is a blended malt whiskey that is made from 3 of the finest single malts on the market. So it's blended from the Macallan, the Highland Park, and the Glenrothes single malt whiskeys, which we've had on the show. And those 3 in various proportions are blended together and then aged in what they call naked first fill sherry casks. And that's why they call it the Naked Malt. And as you will have observed by now, the aroma, the nose, it's a thing. So I will let you share with our guests and friends and listeners what it is that you are experiencing as we get into the Naked Malt on this wonderful Easter weekend.
Well, first of all, that's very hard to describe. Whoa, almost floral in certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a dash of vanilla. No, I don't know. That's almost cedar as well. I tell you what, I'm gonna have to taste that on the palate because words escape me for much more in the nose.
Yeah. When I first smelled it, what I thought was, it was easy to imagine as someone who has enjoyed the Macallan and the Highland Park and the Glenrothes that go into this blend. The first thing that I thought was that I should be able to pick out, some of those kind of quintessential notes. The Macallan has sort of a sherry nuttiness to it. The Glenrothes is more about vanilla and maybe a little cinnamon. The Highland Park is smoky and woody, and you know what I'm saying. And so
Yeah, I'm getting woody, vanilla. Haven't picked up any nutty notes.
yeah,
But that is just. Oh, I mean, that's just enjoyable.
yeah. It to me, the thing that I smell most from this blend is, we've talked about it a couple of times in reference to some of the single malts that have a sweeter or fruitier finish. I smell like fruitcake and maybe a little fudge, like from this, you know.
Now, why would you want to put this fine whiskey down?
I know that you
with
have
this
an issue with fruitcake,
Dude,
but
it's the bit. We have to keep the bit consistent.
which is fair. You hate fruitcake, and that's fine. But the fact is, fruitcake smells amazing.
You know, on this beautiful Easter weekend, I'm gonna make a confession. I have had good fruitcake
No,
in my life.
no.
However, I shall continue to denigrate its name
That's fine. You may do as you must.
into eternity.
As you see fit. As you see fit. As you see fit. I think it's time to try it now. The naked malt, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I wish you could see Matthew's face, folks.
that is new but familiar. That is smooth in a not abstract way. Like it's buttery coating. Just not acrid at all. Yep, butterscotch. The vanilla is still there. Not really picking up the cinnamon right now. You know what? That another taste is warranted. Oh.
I mean, I really wish you could see his face. It's amazing. All right.
So how is the list being populated so quickly? We just started the list,
Yes, we did.
and now we have another one
That is
that
very
immediately
clearly, yes.
ascends to the list.
Yes. 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 And
Don't listen, Quincy. Do not bring out all the best
Right
in
away.
the first few weeks
I would,
of the list.
No, I would never do that to you. I'm just saying, I thought that this was a clear contender, and I wanted to get.
It's not a contender. It's there. It's just on the list.
It's on the list. All right. So, to be very clear, ladies and gentlemen, the Naked Malt has made it to the list. We at the end of the year, we'll have to prioritize the list, try to create some kind of order, as in numbers 1 through whatever.
I mean, we could be a little more. Yeah. Well, if you're into this on the list, but the list will be the list.
The list
and
is
then
the list.
if your preference is this or that or the next or
Fair enough. So no top Scotch of the year.
I think that's a little bit childish.
A little bit much.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. Something might stand out.
This is my bestest friend. Until next week.
Until next week, something might stand out. Of all the Scotches we tasted this year, this one might be the best. You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
You never
Anyway,
know.
Happy Easter again
Happy Easter.
from the Sunday Scotch Society. Woo, yeah, the Naked Malt. It's funny that we talk about Easter as if it is a national holiday, when it is in fact a national holiday.
I mean,
And the
did I miss something?
No, not at all. It's the I guess it's part of one of the things that, not part of one of the things, but it's one of the things that I wanted to chat about briefly is sort of the there are some subjects that are considered third rails in group conversation, right? The third rail, to be clear, whenever that phrase is used, and people, if you don't understand it, when somebody says the third rail, what they're referring to is an elevated train or a train track that's electrified. The third rail is where the current is that allows the train to move forward. So if you touch the third rail, of course, you get fried. And so when they say a third rail subject, they're saying something you stay away from. Otherwise, you get fried, severely electrocuted.
Yeah.
Die.
I mean, standard. Work, politics.
And religion.
Are banned
Yes.
in gatherings at my place.
Yes. And so today we are going to briefly discuss one of those banned subjects, being religion.
Yeah, because we're not at my place.
Yeah. It's just funny to me because we have a series of religious holidays in the Bahamas, and we still have in our political construct and our constitutional scholarship an argument about whether the Bahamas is quote unquote a Christian nation and what that even means. And most people still go to church, even if that majority has shrunk. I don't think it has yet gotten to the point of being a minority. And even of the majority of people who go to church, I feel, and to be very clear, the caveat that is given on radio stations and whatnot is that the views of the host and their guests are not necessarily those of management or whatever the case may be. Well, my view may not be Matthew's view or the view of anybody else, but in my view, much of the church-going and therefore religiosity of the Bahamas is cultural, right? We go to church because it's what you do, as opposed to going to church because you feel compelled to, as Scripture says, neglect not the assembling of yourselves together. Families have always gone, my family has always gone to this church. So this is the church that I am going to, and my children will go to this church because that is our family tradition. And even in religious scholarship, the Catholics have a certain view of the value of tradition, and the Reformists, with their three solae, fought against the idea of tradition by saying, sola scriptura, which means the Bible over tradition.
Right, which is itself holds a little bit of irony, but continue.
yeah, right. So it's like I kind of wonder sometimes when we are involved or engaged in national religiosity, whether or not that religiosity has any value in terms of not personal value or not in terms of an individual's life, but in terms of a national life, in terms of the nation, so to speak. You as an individual Christian, or you as an individual Buddhist, or you as an individual Baha'i, or you as an individual ascetic, or you as an individual atheist, or you
there
as
are
an
a lot of
individual
religions.
agnostic.
You don't have to go through them all.
Yada, yada, yada. And there are some people who are not religious too. And even that, for some people, is almost a religion, with the fervor with which they pursue their non-religiousness. But I wonder if, as we look at our community and as we look at our society, we can see any corporate or communal benefit in the hyper-religiosity of the Bahamian society. That's one of the things that I wonder on occasions like this, when we are, as a country, celebrating a religious holiday or a religious observance. What do you think, Matthew?
There's pros and cons to everything, and I mean, the straight up answer is yes. There's benefit. The question is the benefit worth the drawbacks? And different people feel different ways. You got some militant atheists who will tell you, hell no.
Mm-hmm. And are they right, though? I mean, that's kind of my question.
Yeah. I think certain aspects, but most of those aspects, I think, have been worked out in our society. What remains, I think, is fairly benign. We referenced the Film and Plays Control Board the other day, and this religiosity being a component of that, right?
Indeed.
But it's mostly a moot thing, right? Yeah. Every now and again it becomes relevant, and certain people's the leadership of the community of Christian churches, right? Primarily represented in the Christian Council,
which we are going to talk about in a second.
Okay, sure. They definitely have an impact, but I don't think it's, if it's outsized, it's not very outsized. I think the comma heads have prevailed in instances where they are incorrect to the point of doing damage. In recent years, I think that a lot of their views, frankly, I wouldn't say a lot, but frankly, some of their views are abhorrent to me. We don't need to get into what is what, but the point is that I don't agree with everything that they say, but I really agree that they should have a voice. Now, how the form of that voice, I think, the devil's in the details, and the particulars really, really matter. And I would prefer if they don't have just de facto representation and this and that and the next in government policy. But for the most part, I don't think we're in danger of a theocratic state. Other than, like, as you said, most of this is cultural, and so it pervades everything. And that's not necessarily good or bad, but it's gonna be represented.
Yeah. To me, the only challenge that I have with what you have said, and challenge may be overstating it a bit, is a mild disagreement in that my daughter is American because she was born in America. She cannot be Bahamian unless I go through a particular bunch of hoops, because I was also born outside the Bahamas.
Oh, were you?
And I was married to her mother at the time that she was born.
Yes, but her mother
is
much less in the eyes of the Constitution of the Bahamas.
So she can't get her citizenship from her mother. And she can't get citizenship from me, because since I got my citizenship from my parents, I was a Bahamian when I was born. But I was born outside the country, so I can't pass on my citizenship to my daughter without going through these constitutional hoops, going to the Department of Immigration, Ministry of Immigration, and so on and so forth.
It's not complexity, but the complicatedness of that silliness adds an extra layer of hilarity to me.
Yes, for sure. And the outsized influence of the Christian Council comes into play in things like this.
Yes.
Right? The last two attempts by a government of the Bahamas to correct that particular flaw.
So there are important,
right, in our Constitution.
Infrequent but important outliers that have a way outsized impact.
Yes.
Completely agree.
Yes. And the Christian Council's reaction to the gaming industry.
Right. And then, let's not, in case we just run over it, or run out of time, like let's say straight up, the marital rape issue as well, right? Which is they are completely and utterly insane on this issue.
I believe...
I don't mind putting my view out.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I believe that it is very clear that if you take the biblical point of view seriously, I believe that our religious leaders will have a lot to answer for on Judgment Day when they stand before God for the marital rape position that they have taken. Because they are wrong, and I think it's hideous behavior from quote-unquote men and women of God. That's my view, which I also don't mind putting out there. But for all of the fact that, as you say, those instances could be considered outliers, there's a sort of a dichotomy that exists in most societies, I think, that have really prominent religious institutions, right? On the one side, there's a certain kind of moralism that is presumed to be the natural mode of behavior. Right. But then on the other side, people party really hard. You know what I'm saying? They indulge in whatever their indulgences are in a sort of an equally proportionate way to how they carry on moralistically.
I don't like to overemphasize dichotomies. They do exist, and I completely agree with this one.
Yeah, it's because so on this wonderful Easter weekend, as we are celebrating the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, from death, hell, and the grave, and his triumph over death, hell, and the grave, according to our Judeo-Christian tradition, it is interesting to me to consider that this now must be a time of national focus on renewal.
Okay.
Right? It's you go through the 40 days of Lent. You give something up for the very purpose,
right,
of, you know what I'm saying? Being renewed in some way.
Right.
The whole point of the resurrection, biblically speaking, is the redemption of mankind. The idea that there's a reconciliation, that something that was not possible before now becomes possible because of this act, because of this moment. And as I'm looking at our community and our society, I have to ask, what is it, if anything, that we are going to change, or how are we going to grow, or what are we going to become now?
Well, okay. First of all, let me clarify that I was chuckling because, my perspective is I don't see that at a societal level. There may be people who practice Lent, get the giving up of this or that, etc., and that might manifest on a smaller scale. But I don't see it. See it on a national scale. Yeah. So that's why I chuckled, and certainly not at the state level. But it's not without coincidence that this is happening during springtime, right? And so that sense of renewal although it's much more prominent in the north, or if you're south of the equator in the far south. We can still see certain trees bloom at this time. The weather patterns are starting to change. Over the next few weeks, we'll stop getting cold fronts, etc., right? So I agree that it's a great time to be thinking about this. I'm not going to prescribe anything that we should be looking to renew. I'm going to be instead curious about what other people are thinking here. I know within my own life what I'm seeking to renew. It's just basically getting back on track, getting rid of garbage, spring cleaning, that sort of thing. But besides the $100 million for the roads, sorry, I had to put that in because apparently we're a political show. And
yes.
So I had to say something about politics.
Yes.
Why anyone would think that I'm interested in speaking about politics that much, besides actual bits of policy that affect every day, I have no idea. But
that's what it is.
Have your views, people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, besides renewing of the things that are like people naturally think of because of the culture and enculturation of various ideas from at home and from abroad, right? I don't see anything in particular, and I'd be very, very interested to know what other people are thinking, what should be renewed. Because I think that most of this, if it ever existed at this time, has been pushed to Christmas, New Year's.
Yeah.
That's when we do most of our renewal thinking and whatever.
No, it's a great point. I would encourage, and I agree. I would be very curious to know what our listeners think needs renewing and will see renewal around this moment in our national development, our national life. So I am on Instagram at Funk Daddy, FUNQDADDY, at Funk Daddy. So let me once again, FUNQ.DADDY. So hit me up on Instagram and tell me what you think. Matthew, I would love for you to get your folks involved in this as well, your followers and fans on IG.
Well, I'll pull from other platforms.
You'll pull, I'm sure. Ladies and gentlemen on Instagram, please don't feel judged. He didn't mean it that way.
I have 7 followers on Instagram. And honestly, right now, that's good for me.
Thank you very much, my brother. Enjoy the rest of your Easter holiday. After the break, folks, we are going to enjoy some of the previous conversations that we've had here on the Sunday Scotch Society that didn't get to air.
I think we agreed to call them Tasty Tidbits.
Tasty Tidbits. Yeah, so enjoy the rest of your Easter holiday as well, folks. And we will see you next time here on the Sunday Scotch Society. Matthew, one last review of the Naked Malt, as it has now sat for a while and developed and opened up. This is so good.
Butterscotch, ghee, in fact.
Ghee being a clarified butter. That
ghee,
is...
Yes. Go ahead. Continue the qualification.
No, please. You take over.
It has been caramelized a bit, It's not straight clarified butter.
Right. I was going to say that and also point out that it is a popular ingredient in, almost a quintessential ingredient in certain classical Indian cuisine.
Yes.
But please continue.
Yeah, my palate is at a loss, except to say, man, this is good.
My palate enjoys the toffee and the butterscotch, and there's a little spiciness to this that is complemented, I think, by those warm flavors. So I wouldn't call it pepper, but I would say some almost like woody kind of oat coffee flavor components. That kind of light bitterness you get from a really good coffee, I think is one of the background notes of this. The Naked is by far the best blended Scotch that I've had.
This is a Scotch to dwell with, and I shall do so.
Good man. Even more than the famous Grouse Smoky Black for me, this is the best blended Scotch I've had in recent memory.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, folks, and make sure you stay tuned. I won't tell you which conversations, but they are very. There's one in particular that I'm excited to have people hear finally. So, yeah, stick around. You're listening to the Sunday Scotch Society on Guardian Talk Radio 96.9 FM. Here's a flashback to an earlier conversation that we were having on Neuralink and all of the matters that surrounded it. This part of the conversation had to get cut for time purposes, but I thought it would be interesting for us to share it with you here now. So here we go. I'm not sure that we can see the end of this path. And what worries me isn't that we can't see the end of this path. What worries me is that we don't give a shit. Right? Not being able to see the end of a path is not new. Right? Who can see, as our listeners who are fantasy aficionados would be, aware, if they're followers of like Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, right? The prophets and seers in that world, they can't see a person's future past a choice that person doesn't understand. Right? So they can see your future based on whatever choices you'll make down a certain path of reality. But past the choice you can't understand, they can't see.
Right, but I'll counter.
And for my money, I don't think we can imagine what happens down this road past a certain level. And I don't think we care, which to me is the problem.
Yeah, the part I agree with, I'll get back to in a second, but I want to counter your Jordan example with an Asimov. So
fair enough.
So, in that world, we can't predict what any one individual will do, but we can predict in aggregate. Mm-hmm. And so I think both things are true to a certain degree. And there are trends that are inevitable. But
I like that you're using the word true, even though you don't really believe in truth.
No, I believe in truths.
I'm just fucking with you, man.
We can say that in this segment of the podcast. So yeah, the thing that I agree about is we definitely don't care enough, and it brings to mind the old adage, I think attributed to either Eisenhower or Truman, but in either case, they're apocryphal. that planning is, the plan is nothing, but planning is everything. Right? Meaning that, again, another adage, no plan survives contact with the enemy, right? But the exercise of going through everything, having considered everything, is super important to us having a wide view of things and therefore wide options when we encounter what is inevitably going to be different to what the plan was. Yeah. So I don't think it's not only that we're not individually thinking about it, which not enough of us are, but here's the thing that I don't think I talked about on the podcast yet. I'm really thinking about, over the last year especially, the analogies between us, human individuals, and then the broader units that we make up into families and communities, and then, eventually into nations, but also into companies and, at the multinational level. And it gets super complicated, right? Yes. So, beginning to regret this game.
I'm sure. By now.
First and last episode for this game.
Yeah, for sure. By now, somebody is laid out on the floor right now.
Drinking sips are too big. So, at what point are we no longer in the biological analogy, cells, and we begin to become multicellular organisms, and then beyond just a plain multicellular organism into having organs, and then eventually, in the case of humans, this emergent property of consciousness, or a consciousness of our level. Because it's quite clear that most, if not all, animals are conscious in some fashion, right? So, having said that, what are the organisms or the subunits of humanity that could become organs? The nations, the corporations, etc., that need to be thinking about this that aren't, right? So, because if you had a genius who could figure it out, it's still completely ineffectual. This has to happen at a level where action is available.
Systemic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get you.
And again, it's fighting with, what's the petty politics of the day, right? Is this going to get me elected, unelected, etc.?
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, so what concerns me about all of this is that at the end of the day, the great and good considerations, the deep thinking, the angst, the moral and ethical angst that the creators of this technology must go through in order to decide to move forward, will ultimately happen in a back room or in their backyard with a cigar or in their basement, whatever, wherever it happens.
Even worse,
and then,
in a boardroom.
Or in a boardroom. But then whatever they come out of that chrysalis with then becomes subject to the political whims of the day.
That's an extremely scary analogy, the chrysalis, because I don't know if many listeners know. Some will. When a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis, it completely disassociates into a goo, and then completely recombines into something completely different. Amazingly, there's still memory, right? It no longer has a brain to speak of, but it retains some memory or whatever. But the point is that what we look like on the next side of this, because of some idiot in a chrysalis, is a scary proposition. But I still think that's tempered with overall trends.
Yeah. I when I saw the story, all I could think of was, heard the story, I was driving. All I could think of was, we are the agents of our own destruction.
But why do you think, why does your mind go to destruction when you hear about a quarter-sized microarray being implanted into a willing participant in a study called the Prime Study?
Because
for a device that is dubbed, I don't know if you caught this part, it is dubbed telepathy.
I did catch that. And I thought, these people need a drink, okay? To call this thing telepathy. Anyway. But it says so much about what they're thinking, right? And so much about what their goal and intentions might be.
Well, but I don't get why you're saying that, though.
Yeah, you do. It's like you would. But
okay.
All righty, buddy.
Well, great.
Yeah. Everything all right?
I'm good, man.
Good. So the reason I'm not necessarily negatively inclined to think about this, or inclined to think about this negatively. When I say we are the agents of our own destruction, I'm talking from a perspective of potentiality, right? We create things that seem inevitable. They seem like the foregone conclusion of a series of realities that had to be faced, and therefore this decision had to be made, right? Oppenheimer is a great example to me of, at least in the cinematic sense, because I don't know the history. I have not read the history well enough to be able to make any comment outside of having seen the movie, right? So let's take the movie as given, not as history, but as historic-ish. Yeah, I know. Right, so historic-ish and true in the broad strokes.
It has a above average truthiness.
Exactly. Right. It's a chocolate bar that's maybe 76%. Right.
That's a lot, but anyway.
Okay, fine. 64%, whatever. Right. But the point is, to me, what I found emotionally true was the idea of a series of decisions having been made that were not about the end result, but that were about dealing with the exigencies of the moment, dealing with the reality that confronted him at each moment along the path, and then standing at the brink of testing this thing and realizing, okay, I might have started off trying to create X, but what I have created for X, the people who fund me and who control my strings will use for Y. And regardless of whether or not I agree with Y, I want to see my X through to completion. Because it's my X, right? I created this thing. I want to see it work. I want to succeed. And having succeeded, now I have to accept the consequence that I have given my successful creation into the hands of a group of people who don't give a shit about why I created this or what my intention for this was, or even what I see it as. They see it as what they want to use it for. And because they are now in possession of my X, Y is a reality for them. And I think that's when I say we are the agents of our own destruction, what I mean is we consistently, as a race, humans, seem to face the moment, make decisions in the moment, and then find ourselves 10 decisions down the chain facing a reality where we look back 10 decisions and say, why did you make that choice? Why did you choose that path, which has led us to this moment here? I remember thinking something similar when I was in school in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is full of Indian reservations, right? And you talk to some Oklahomans who are white but have Indian heritage, and by Indian I mean Native American. And they have significant Native American heritage. And the choices that were made that led to a situation in which the native people of the land are living as living in a reservation on land that they used to own. And on both sides, I am of the view that each side is questioning its decision tree, right? The Native Americans are questioning why they were so accommodating, why they didn't see that they should have fought harder to maintain their control of their land, whatever. The interloper, who is now the American citizen of Oklahoma, if you hear the angst that they have about having displaced the Native Americans, there's a question that they are having about why did my forebears treat them that way? And so both sides are questioning
as much as we are questioning this decision for this drinking game.
This drinking game was truly questionable, Matthew. And I blame you. But you understand my point.
I do. However, two or 3 points there. One is, I think that any thinking person, when I say that, I mean any reflective person, is going to experience that anyway. And I don't know that there's anyone who has never had an intrusive, mortifying memory of when they did something or X happened, whatever. And so it's one of degree. So at some point, you may be questioning the decision tree for something that has had far more consequences. That's one thing. The second thing is part A and B of your story about the reservations. On the one hand, there's my earlier analogy about the body, individuals being cells, and eventually you come to organs, and what is the structure? Where are we at in that analogy in terms of humanity? Right, we are obviously not at a full consciousness level as an evolved being that is called humanity. There's just a bunch of cells stuck together in different parts with vying interests, but overall we don't tend to kill off each other enough so that we're a detriment to ourselves yet. What we're doing to the environment, I'm drinking, sir. What we're doing to the environment is something else. So there's that level. But part B of that, as the first time that I've seen Quincy have a sip and almost choke on it.
Went down the wrong pipe because I was doing foolishness. But anyway,
the other side is, right, I think there's a lot of conflation in the way that you frame that.
Fair enough.
And I think it's important, especially in our context here in the Bahamas. we or they are often portrayed as an entity set in time. So we white people, we black people, we Indians, we Americans, this, that, and the next, right? Where the reality is that none of those Indians alive today made those decisions. So the whole idea of we made X decisions, and on the other side, same thing with the white people or non-white people who are not native or don't have native ancestry or a lot of native ancestry. You see what I'm saying? Like lumping any given individual or set of people into too coarse a group doesn't do the discussion of the thing any favors, in my opinion. But at the same time, the discussion of the decision tree on the whole is super important.
And I think that that's part of where I come back to my original assertion. Well, my original assertion in this segment, that number one, we are the engineers of our own destruction. And I accept your challenge of the word destruction, so I'll put it in quotation marks and say that it stands in for the concept of unintended consequences and not giving enough heft to the potential for unintended consequences in the initial considerations to begin with. Now, that's what unintended means, but nonetheless.
Yeah. I just want to stand up for engineers by saying that the intent I completely understand and agree with, but I think that we need to underline that in that case we are very incompetent engineers.
Yeah, we are. I am.
So you're not getting Neuralink?
In case it is not clear, let me say it as clearly as possible. Mm-hmm. Hell fucking no. Even if Neuralink will clear up my vision, fix my torn meniscus in my left knee, and help me get into my bikini body by the end of the summer, so I could do my calendar shoot in my orange Speedos. No fucking way. Absolutely not. Excuse my language, but no.
Is that a phobia? Is that a technophobia or a specific Neuralink phobia?
It is it's an AI phobia. Mm. I don't have a problem with Neuralink, and I suspect that if I have a family member who could benefit from it, I would encourage them to say yes. But personally, the idea of an artificial intelligence controlling something that is strapped in and wired directly into my brain is a problem for me.
So now we come to it, right? Do you think that you have any more control over the subconscious processes going on in your brain, variously investigated and described by people like Jung as archetypes?
I love Mr. Jung, and I have a particular view as to which archetype I am most closely aligned with. But no, I don't think I do. But what I do think is that those things are functioning in a system that is designed to function that way. And introducing an external intelligence into that system is a problem for me. That's where I'm at.
Fair enough. I'll cry at your funeral.
You what?
I'll cry at your funeral.
No, you won't. You won't be able to.
Why is that?
Because Neuralink will make sure that you no longer have tear ducts.
Why would I?
Because you will have become a person who, as a cyborg, has no need to cry anymore. And as a result of having no need to cry anymore.
Need I refer you back to, help me, Lord, too much Scotch.
Sure, blame the Scotch.
Need I refer you back to, what is the anime before Standalone Complex?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not an anime dude. I don't
No, but
know.
this one is I will be shot and killed. Please edit out this fumbling.
I will.
They made a live action remake with Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Oh.
God, it really is too much Scotch. Anyway, she's a cyborg.
Scarlett? No, not Scarlett. Her? No, not her. I know what you're talking about now. And I can't remember what it's called.
Oh my God. Hold on.
You can edit it. You'll edit it later. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. I have to find the name of this thing.
It's 3:00, so I gotta get to editing. Because I have some things I got to do later on today.
For sure. But let me just get this and we can end up.
Mm-hmm.
Need some Star Trek synthol, man. What's happening here? Don't. That's a joke. Don't. Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell.
Oh man, I truly deserve to be shot.
Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
I watched both that anime and the live action remake. So you're not the only one that should be shot.
Yeah, so need I refer you back to Ghost in the Shell, the proper original, and really should only be the only thing named Ghost in the Shell anime, not the live action.
Which I did enjoy, I confess.
You know, some things can be classified as an old associate of mine would say as serviceable entertainment.
Or a guilty pleasure.
But yeah, not the same thing. But being a cyborg does not, or even complete android, does not mean that you would not have emotions. You know, there are.
It is not a question of whether you have emotions, Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is.
Are you saying that I wouldn't have tear ducts?
That's precisely my point. I said that already.
You can dry cry. You can dry cry, man.
If you dry cry at my funeral, people will think you're laughing, Matthew. And I will find a way to haunt you.
And you,
I promise you, I will find a way
in that case,
to haunt you.
Just for you, I will install tear ducts.
And what happens when they start spurting out of your eyes? Right? The tears are spurting 6 inches out of you. No, that's even worse. No.
It's bringing anime into the real world.
Absolutely no. Exactly. None of that ish. No, sir.
Quincy, it's been good talking, man.
I'm sorry. I followed the rules of the drinking game and drank every time there was a
As
thing.
did I.
Except the last one.
I'm not as thirsty as you are.
Yeah, sure,
This
whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Matthew just called me an alcoholic, but okay.
I did not.
Anyway. Yeah, this was a great conversation, my brother. Thank you. I was going to ask you about Cassius Stewart's campaign to have the death penalty instituted for, let me make sure because I don't want to misquote him, the death penalty for those caught smuggling guns into the Bahamas. But that is perhaps something we can touch on
Another time.
another time. Yes, yes, indeed.
Dear listener, thank you for joining us.
Indeed,
I hope that you did enjoy a sip with us and that this little drinking game, again, which is first and last time, does not have you too out of sorts. If you're with us this far, you have already visited the website or subscribed to the podcast feed. Thank you ever so much for that. And if it's not already there should also be a little form for subscription to our newsletter /blog, in which we pontificate upon various subjects.
How do they subscribe, Matthew?
It's self-evident on the website. It just says, put your email in, click the button.
And the website again is
sundayscotch.com. If you would like to go old school, or we welcome your emails, just send it to neat@sundayscotch.com.
Indeed. Thanks, Matthew. See you next time, my friend.
Been a pleasure.